Welcome to Centre Court. Thanks to TAC, how safe is your car? Well, it sure has been a massive week in netball. One of the positives, though, to come out of it is the fact that my co-host Ash Brazill is not only back in Melbourne, you are now back at the desk joining me for this episode. Welcome back.
Thanks, B. I've missed the chair, and to be completely honest, I'm glad I don't have to see my big mug on the big screen when I'm talking to you, because I was very uncomfortable.
It was a huge show last week. It was great having Emmy on, and it caused lots of discussion, but there has been even more discussion on socials, so make sure you keep commenting, keep tagging us at Centre Court Show and hashtag Centre Court Netball so we can all join in the conversations. And one of my favourite times on Twitter was on Friday, actually, in the netball world, because it was going bananas. There were so many opinions flying around. We'll get to that shortly, though.
We will. It was interesting.
It was very, very interesting. I want to talk to you about your game, though. What an incredible game against the Lightning. Just so close.
So close. And B, I know it does hurt that we did lose, but the fact that we were the only game over the weekend, I feel like both teams brought their A game. Any team could have won. The fact that it was a draw at the end of the game, we went into overtime, Lightning got us in the end. But overall, it was just a great game to be a part of. And a shout out to the Lightning crowd and the production of the Lightning crew, because it was amazing to play there. The lights, the atmosphere, all of it was just incredible.
Yeah, it was a really great game. Okay, let's get stuck into everything that we need to discuss. It's now time for the agenda, thanks to TAC. Make safety features a priority in your next car. Visit howsafeisyourcar.com.au. Now, as of today, we are talking on Wednesday that all the teams have flown into Melbourne. Let's take a look at some of the footage. This was on all of the players' Instagrams. We see Joe Harton there showcasing. There was a chartered flight out of Queensland which had the Giants, the Swifts, the Lightning and the Firebirds all on it, and they have arrived in Melbourne as of last night. Still not really sure what's going on, still not really confirmed what games will be happening. We know that some will be played out of Melbourne, but when did you fly home? Because you got home before kind of the quick rush.
Yeah, so we knew going into last week's game is that we were going to play the Lightning, and then going off all the cases, I think Collingwood made that call and Netball Australia that both Vixens and Collingwood get back as soon as possible. So we flew out straight after the game. We were lucky enough that we were able to say we were in an orange zone, where the day after it went to a red zone. So lucky that we got in, but like everyone, we had to isolate until we got our COVID test back, and we're able to train today, which was nice.
It's been an incredible time, especially for a lot of players having to be adaptable, having to be flexible. And I mean, just thinking of the Swifts and Giants, when they packed up and left to go to Queensland, I'm sure that they're not bringing their big puffer jackets to keep themselves warm. And now they haven't had the opportunity to go home. They've been flown straight to Melbourne. And the other morning it was 4 degrees here in Melbourne. Like, they won't have anything with them really to be prepared to come into freezing cold Melbourne and cope with probably what's going to be thrown at them the next couple of weeks.
Exactly. And I think that's where the difference is, and the change of mind thinking, I guess, because we got told 5 weeks ago that we'll only be going away for a week. And in that time, it was like, we got told 2 hours before, we'll only be going for a week, so pack your stuff for Sydney. And it wasn't like, it was more just the players going, we know what COVID's like. It's not going to be just a week. Let's plan for at least to be 4 and know that we could be in Sydney, we could be in Queensland, we could be in Perth. So we literally packed for everything. Having a 23 kilo bag allowance was not great, but you pack for that, and we know that we can't control it. The government can't control COVID, so how are we going to control it? We know that we're going to get told daily what's going on, and you've just got to roll with it.
And we know also with the teams and the players relocating here, also you've all been given your stay-at-home rules, or there's different rules now that you all have to abide by, even though the 2 Melbourne teams are at home. Can you take us through how you get communicated what those rules are, and what are you allowed to do at the moment? Oh, you've got special permission, haven't you, to be able to come in here today?
Yeah, I guess I do, which is really nice. But it's all just, I guess, COVID protocol, and knowing that our biggest goal is to keep the league going. So we got, I know, and this is just Collingwood, we got told by our high performance officer, Jane Woodlands-Thompson, the protocol around it. We had some questions with Netball Australia, so we were able to jump on a call and just ask more questions, and more so just around that we did make it back in time, so why are we still following these rules? And just simple facts that this is just we need to do the right thing. So if anything has to change, if we have to get onto a flight, go to Perth, that the Perth government, no, the whole league have done the same thing. And simple things just like, not going to big shopping centres, because we now know that COVID spreads more through shopping centres than the hospitals. So things like that, not sitting out at restaurants. We can get takeaway, but it is not sitting there. And simple things like we can't just go hang out at a friend's house. So we are in our own mini lockdown. I had to give them the whole details about this, that it's just you and I and the cameras and all the boys shooting behind the scene are in another room to get it all passed off. But it's a serious matter, and in the end, it's not really. It's about us because it's our life, but the bigger picture is keeping the game alive, and we're so lucky that we're actually able to get the next round going.
And I know this purely just through the commentary with Channel 9. Great that games will be happening in Melbourne. We know that at the moment there is 3 confirmed games, obviously, that will happen. That's the Vixens Lightning, that is Swifts Fever, and Giants. Who are the Giants playing? I should know this. I just wrote it down. Oh, Giants Firebirds.
I only know my games, Bianca.
But that's when I want to talk about your game, because Adelaide Thunderbirds and Magpies are meant to play on Sunday in Adelaide. We also know, I think there's confirmed 4 cases in Adelaide as of today, potentially going into a lockdown. Are you still going at this stage?
Yeah, well, I've just come from training, and the news that we got is we actually hadn't heard about the COVID cases, but I'm sure everyone else knew about it. But it was more just under the fact that Netball Australia have worked really hard with the South Australian government to get this game ahead. They've obviously sold a lot of tickets. So one, I'm not sure if there is COVID cases, will there be a crowd? But they've worked really hard for us to get over there. We've now got a permit that we can go across. We fly out as late as possible from Melbourne, but we get in on the Saturday afternoon night, and then we're in a hotel quarantine. So we won't leave the hotel until the game, play the game, and then literally get on the next flight out.
How do you go as an athlete preparing for that, knowing that you will sit in a hotel and not be allowed out, not be able to go for a walk? Is that tough? Or because it's only a small amount of time, you think it'll be okay?
I think everyone's different. I know for me, a part of my routine is taking Louis for a big walk and just getting out of the house. Previous to Louis, though, was the complete opposite. So I don't mind being stuck in the hotel, being on a lounge, being in bed. But there are players that do like to go out. So I think it's personal, but in the end, they're the rules and we've got to make do with them.
Oh, it seems more and more likely that at some stage we may have all the teams hubbing in Melbourne, and that will be very exciting for all of the Victorian fans out there who have missed out on a lot of netball, not just the last month, but also last year. All right, on to our next agenda item, and it is a biggie. Braz, what happened with the Vixens and Fever? I want to know your take. I want to know what you thought about it. I want to know from a Magpie's point of view, who was in the right, who was in the wrong. There's just opinions flying everywhere.
Well, you're the Vixens person here, Bianca, so I kind of want to hear from you. What is the truth? Because it's all up in the air, but you go off Twitter, you go off social media, and obviously it was a big shock to us.
Did you know any of this was going on behind the scenes at all before Friday, when it was announced that the game was going to be cancelled / rescheduled?
No, because you're in your own little bubble, and I know that sounds a bit selfish, but all you care about is your team and how you're going to play the next game. So we were just focused about us and assuming that because we'd been in Queensland, there'd been no cases that both teams would be able to get to their games. I actually saw the news broken by Tim Gossage in WA saying that the Vixens didn't board the flight, and so that for us was just like, what has happened?
You're like, popcorn, please.
Yeah, and literally, wasn't it? It was just like watching it unfold on Twitter and seeing people's different opinions. And for me, though, I actually feel for Fever, and I know you're going to criticise me here, but hear me out. I just think this is where it's really tough.
Some of the tweets too that were flying around on Friday. Everyone has their own opinions, but yes, talk about Fever form.
Well, I'm just thinking as an athlete, right? Because if this was my team and someone didn't come to play us, you don't get the call to know what media statement goes out. You don't get to say your own things. As an athlete, you try and stay quiet because that's what you've been told. in my opinion, I feel like the Fever jumped the gun and said the wrong thing in the press conference, the press media, and that is why I think a lot of people are in Team Vixens at the moment. And which is interesting, the fact that Netball Australia are now doing an investigation. So for me, there's obviously more out there. I think now it's come out that there's 3 players that weren't allowed to cross the border, and those 3 players are their best players. So
we had Emily Mannix, Joe Weston and Kate Maloney, who during their bye weekend went to Byron Bay. They had permission from the league, permission from the club to go. But as we know, with COVID, that things shut down pretty quickly. And unfortunately for them, they were in the wrong place at the wrong time and had to cross the border and were too late to be able to then get to WA.
Yeah, and this is where I think being on the other side, would another team still have gone? And because those 3 players, that's over 500 games of experience. So it is a lot, but in the end, there are still enough players to take the court, which leads me to all the Twitter. I saw Sue Gordian comment with ABC Perth. So let's take a listen now to what Sue had to say.
We appreciate the fact that the Melbourne Vixens are in a really difficult predicament. But there's a lot that's played out this week that could have shifted those circumstances and allowed this game to go ahead. And the fact that it isn't is bitterly disappointing for our club and the 9,000 Green Army that were about to turn up to RAC Arena on Sunday. Certainly their circumstances were made more difficult by the fact that they are currently in Queensland and that to bring in an additional squad member would mean they would have to go to their training partners who are based down in Victoria. And of course, as we know, our hard border is also closed to Victoria. But that said, there are other ways in which the league has rules to allow players to be contracted called temporary replacement players. And in fact, you can pull those from anywhere in terms of any state that is eligible. And so based on the rules of the competition and the fact that we believe the Melbourne Vixens could have fulfilled their obligation to play this game with 8 contracted athletes and 2 temporary replacement players, we're disappointed that they didn't choose that option. But I think what they're claiming is that it's the integrity of the league that's at stake, that at the end of the day, you want the best team on the court. And what we're saying is, well, there was an avenue for the Melbourne Vixens to hop on a plane before the border closed to eliminate this entire disaster. And they chose not to do it.
Now, strong words from Sue. And what I love about Sue, she's so honest. So we actually got the side of Fever. I think she has some points. I do understand Vixens, I guess, not wanting to go over there, but Sue does bring up a good point. So I'm very intrigued to see where this goes.
Absolutely. And we know the league is doing an investigation into it, but I think there's been a lot of commentary over the weekend. And the thing that really stands out for me is that it's not up to the 2 clubs to sort it out. It's up to the league to stand up and to actually have some leadership over this, have some leadership over what happens in Super Netball. You can't have the league come out and put out a thing after Tim Gossage has already gone live with his tweet, which, I mean, that's what a journo's job is to do anyway. He would have known all of that was going on behind the scenes. But the league almost wanted to hide everything that was going on and I guess all the animosity between West Coast Fever and the Vixens, which had gone on all week. And it was only the Friday that it really, had transpired because they didn't get on the plane. But I think the league really need to stand up and be strong, but be honest. Treat the fans with the respect that they deserve. And I think we see it in the AFL that they are more than not honest with what goes on, and clubs don't have the ability to hide things. And I just think it should be actually far more transparent out there for the fans to understand what has gone on behind the scenes, rather than just cover it up like, oh no, it's okay, we've got it all sorted, don't even worry about it, everybody. And that's what caused the clubs to put out their own statements. And yes, probably Fever didn't do the right thing on Friday by how they came out with it and the way they were talking about unsportsmanlike, when, I mean, it's a bit rich coming from them with their salary cap issues. But then, the Vixens players put out their individual ones. It just got so messy, and I don't think it needed to be that messy.
So what do you want? When we do see something happen in the AFL, you see their CEO stand up in front of the media. Is that what you're wanting?
Yeah. I think we've got to own the mistakes that are made. We've got to own what goes wrong behind the scenes. It doesn't mean that everyone's personal life and all their personal details have to be out there publicly. But I think when the league just put out 1 or 2 paragraphs to say the game has been cancelled, then come out the next day and say, oh, the game's been rescheduled because of everyone going, well, that means it's a forfeit. That means the team's going to lose points or Fever might get the points because Vixens have forfeited. Had the league just come out and straight away gone, this is what's happening. This is what's been happening all week. This is the reasons both clubs, I kind of can't come to an agreement about what's going to happen next. Let the league do it, and the league should be the ones that govern it properly. And if that means there's an investigation and one team is caught not doing the right thing, then that's okay. They need to own that mistake. But I feel like there's just too much covering up and hiding that's going on. And that's why we get to these positions where, like you said, people on Twitter are picking Team Vixens or Team Fever, and because there's just too much information out there and nothing's actually confirmed.
Yeah, what's real?
It's rumours and it's gossip and it's, I just felt like it was enjoyable to watch as an outsider. But when you are part of the club and you would know what it's like, it's just really hard to sit back and not be able to say anything when you're seeing all of this conversation going on about you and your team. And I think that's really hard.
Well, if there's anything that's come out of this, B, I just love how passionate you are. So thank you for being so passionate about this.
Oh, that's okay. I love it, Braz. That's exactly why we do this show.
Heard it from Bianca, guys. Exactly what B said.
And I can't believe, though, how much has actually gone on, because we've had that. And then another really sad thing that I think has come out of this COVID crisis and the fact that COVID's kicked off again in 2021 is the national championships have now been cancelled. And Braz, I know what it's like as a player when you're so excited to be able to go to a nationals and be able to play the game and amongst all the people who are the same age as you. It's one of the best experiences you have on and off the court. And Kimmy Green was tweeting about it today, just how sad it is that the championships can't go ahead. And it is a huge loss for this next generation of players, because now a lot of them have had 2 years without the ability to be part of this, and Netball Australia have had to cancel it, which you totally understand why. But do you feel the same thing, how hard it would be for these young players? Because that's one of the biggest things you get to do as a young kid is go to nationals.
Oh, 100%. And is this the second year?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's probably, we talk about state, which is under 17s and under 19s, but you can even go further back then. Like there's state age where, I'm not sure what it's called in Victoria, but in New South Wales we call it state age, where all the representative teams come to the one weekend. It's 3 days. For me, it was still to this day the best highlight of my career. Like I loved it. We were playing with my friends. The 3 days, it was full on. But the fact that even it's saying that I know in New South Wales that it's going to be moved dates, but you just never know. This could be cancelled. And the fact that we're having young kids miss out on the sport that they love, it's tough.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm just so grateful that we're still able to keep this SSN league alive, just like all the other elite sports, because you look at everyone else and you kind of feel guilty in a way that, well, like, why do we still get this? And like, I'm so glad we do, but you just feel for everyone else that can't play the sport that they love.
And we can only hope that in a perfect world and a non-COVID world, hopefully by the end of the year, potentially something like that could be rescheduled again so that all the players get the opportunity to play. Okay, that was a big one, but that was the agenda, all thanks to TAC. How safe is your car? It's now time to get to the nitty gritty. All thanks to Lexus of Berwick, your hybrid destination of choice. Visit lexusofberwick.com.au. Okay, Brazzy, I want to go to you on this one because you love your stats, you analyse your stats.
I don't really.
I mean, I've got my computer here because I just like to pretend that I analyse it, but you do it far more than me. And Giants have been very good this year. We've seen them, they're sitting at the moment second on the ladder. I mean, well, that can be moved around a little bit, but they're second on the ladder. They're winning some close games. Tell me about the Giants and how you think. What's really helping them get those scores?
Well, first of all, we'll talk about Giants in a second, but last week we talked to Emmy, and one thing that I loved about it and that she brought up, which I didn't realise, that it had been a year to the day that the 2-point shot had been brought in. And she talked about why it had been brought in, about the fan engagement, but are you actually losing the loyal fans that don't like the 2-point shot? There was so much around it, which then made me think, well, how important is this 2-point shot? And I went back to look at the stats, And I took away a lot of the games, especially Giants, because we obviously have Joe Harton and Sophie Dwyer up there with the top two with the super shot. So obviously they take the most amount of shots. So I focused in on the Giants and tried to figure out how many points really mattered if they took away the super shot. Now,
well, this is a lot.
Yeah, so this is a bit fuzzy, but the thing about it is the result of the game doesn't change.
Okay.
But the score does. And for me, Giants, I look at the Giants and I'm like, how do you stop this team? They are amazing. The fact that they're winning by 16, by 12, that is a lot.
Yes.
And it's traditionally in the normal rules, in the international rules, that is a blowout.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the super shot, it's not really. Okay, so in round 2, the Giants scored, they beat the Magpies by 12. They scored 6 super shots. Magpies scored none. Won by 6.
So it would have been a draw.
Wouldn't have been a draw. They still would have won. It was the 6.
Okay.
If we had got more super shots, it may be a different story. But the one that really stands out to me is the Fever Giants game. Now, everyone knows that Fever at the moment are the standout team. Can anyone get close to them? Yes, the Giants can. And I was like, wow, like Giants, they actually are the team that we're talking about. They're amazing. They're just like Fever. They only lost to Fever by a point. But they scored 10 super shots, which is huge.
Yes,
it's massive. And I think they had like 16 attempts or something like that.
And they've got the shooters to do it, don't they? And that's why they are dominating.
Oh, 100%. But if they didn't do that, they would have lost by 8. So I won't go through the rest of them. They're up there. But it just shows you that a team that you think can flog a team, is it actually because of the work that they're doing outside of the circle? Or is it just because of the super shot? I still think Giants are an amazing side, but I think a lot of their work has to do with the 2-point shot. And when you're shooting 2-point shots, yes, that you are getting score on the board. But for the other team, and this is where I know in round 2, when they beat us, it was scoreboard pressure. Thinking like, they're up by 12. It's not thinking, it's 6 super shots. You're thinking, we need to get 12 more turnovers to beat this team. So it automatically flips the way you think, because it's not like, okay, one intercept scores 2 goals. No, one intercept can actually get 4 goals if you have the next centre pass. So it's different thinking.
And so when you think about that though, and like the super shot is obviously a rule, and teams are going to train to it, teams are going to recruit for it, because that's what you do, like to try and win that competition. But are your concerns more coming from to what it's doing for the development of the players when you look at international netball and how the rules will change as soon as you go into international?
Yeah, a bit of both. I think what's more important? That's another question we can go to. But for me, are the crowd actually liking it? Because I know it was put in so there wasn't blowout games, but when it comes to the Giants, it becomes a blowout because of the 2-point shot. So it does work in some games, and other games it's actually the reverse. It makes a team look like that they've flogged a team when really it's only 6 points. Or like the Fever game, it could have been a blowout, but it actually saved that game. And that game was probably one of the most exciting games to watch. I loved watching that game. But yeah, for me, I want to take away from that, and now we talk about diamonds. And we talk about this all the time, so I'm sorry for everyone out there, but we always bring it back to what is more important, the SSN or international. Because when we talk about the 2-point shot, there's another thing that the International League doesn't have, and it's timeouts. And timeouts is massive in our league. As soon as a team gets a run, you can call timeout, or some teams even go, okay, let's go 5 minutes hard, have the break, and then go again. So is it damaging to international? What's more important? So we're actually going to put it out on Twitter for everyone, and we'll bring it up next week, B.
Yes.
What is more important to you? Is it having the best league in the world with SSN, or is it having the Diamonds win a Com Games and a World Cup, which happens every 4 years? So what is more important to you? It will be up on Twitter, so make sure you put it up there. Yeah.
Yes, I love
There'll
it.
be a poll.
Look at us. We've got lots to talk about today. That was the Nitty Gritty, all thanks to Alexis of Berwick. It's now time for Social Scoop, and I want to bring your attention to a tweet that Natalie Medhurst actually tagged me in, and that was today. And she's talking about she wants Friday night netball to come back. And I mean, asking me if I think it's a good idea. I think it's a great idea. I don't know if you remember back in the day when we used to have Friday night games. Were you in the league then?
I was, V. I've been around for a while.
It was so good, Friday night netball. And now that potentially all the teams will be in Melbourne and that we'll have a bit more flexibility around it, are you okay for that? Would you like midweek games, Friday night games, weekend games?
Oh, I'm all about it. And I'm a bit concerned that Natalie Medhurst, you didn't ask me the question as well because we're a duo. But I am all about it. I would have replied. She knows I'm terrible on my phone. But I love it. I think it's great. And I know we don't want to talk about footy, but Friday night footy is the best. And I know netball probably don't want to compete with that, but I think it's a real good opportunity, especially now that we have all the teams in all the teams in Melbourne. We actually can do that because we're going to be having game after game in Melbourne, hopefully, for the Melbourne people. And we know that Melbourne loves sport. So they'll get behind the netball. You'll have the same people coming to each game. So why not mix it up throughout the whole weekend?
It will be very interesting to see what
But you
plays
didn't
out.
answer the question. Did you
Friday...
reply to Nat?
I did reply and I said, yep, bring it on, I'll be there. I guess the issue would be is that, you know, the broadcast, you have already mapped out for the season the time slots where the netball is shown and whether that's on Telstra TV or on Channel 9. So that's where I think things could get a bit tricky when you just take off your dream hat and put on your actual logistics hat.
Probably something to think about for next year though.
Absolutely. I think it's definitely something to think about and something that you're right, the fans will love and the fans would get behind. And as a player, how much better is it playing Friday night and then having the whole weekend?
Selfishly, just so we can have the whole weekend, that would be lovely. But yeah, I think I'm all about it. I love having Friday night. Like I'm a sports geek, not just netball, not just footy, any sport. So the fact that we can get more sport on TV and we don't have to bunch it in on one day. I know like your weekend's already gone when you're watching the 2 games over a Saturday. So I'm all about Friday night netball.
Here on Centre Court, we love to talk all things netball and also showcase all the netball that is going on, not only around Australia, all around the world. And we have a very special guest today, and his name is Nathan Dart, and the director of the first ever men's netball documentary called Rising to the Occasion. Nathan joins us on Centre Court. Thank you for joining us. And
hey there, guys.
Firstly, I want to know all about this doco that's coming out.
Okay, well, Rising to the Occasion, we're still in production at the moment, and essentially we started out this journey wanting to sort of showcase what men's netball is in terms of at the elite level and how exciting it is and how entertaining, how physical, and we see that with the women's game as well. But as we've kind of gone along with the production, we've uncovered these beautiful stories of the players that play at the elite level. And maybe even some of the the issues around men's netball and why it may not be as visible today as it could be.
And I think what everybody probably might not know either is that a lot of the women's teams, I know the teams that I've played for, even the Australian Diamonds, we use a lot of match practice against the men's teams, whether that's the Australian men's teams or the state-based teams. So for Melbourne and for Australia, we've always had the men's team come in and play practice matches because, I mean, it's really hard, especially a lot of those taller players that we find in SSN, your Romelda Aitkins and your Fowlers. Like, there's not many females that you can find that are that tall and that strong and can jump that high. However, you can often find men that play netball that are that tall and that are, their skills are really good. So the practice matches that we were able to have against men's teams does help prepare you more than probably people realise. And I remember before the Com Games in Glasgow, we had the Australian men's team come to the AIS for a whole week and we played against them every single day. And that was all part of our prep. And I'm sure you, Braz, would have had experience playing against the men's team.
It's not even the games. Like, you talk about games, we have at least 3 guys in every Wednesday just helping us with match practice or extra like, I guess, extra training, extra hands, because the times that we train, one, it's hard for a lot of players. I know we have a couple training partners that are at school, so they obviously can't get that time off. And a lot of obviously the guys work, but they're so dedicated and they get their work off to come into training. So the fact that they love it, and you have like West Coast fever, you've got guys that are in like every single training session, they're pretty much just, I guess, another train on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that is one part too that you want to showcase in the doco as well, is that how much does go on behind the scenes with the women's netball and the men's netball?
Well, yeah, and in fact, we're really lucky enough, like given the COVID environment at the moment, to be able to get to WA a bit earlier this year. And we showcased the WA men's team. And if you go on our social channel, you actually see a little interview with Sue Gordian, who talks about the men training with the fever in the fever environment. And we've also, not to let too much slip, but Nat Medhurst, we've been able to interview her for the documentary, and she talks about her experience as well with men's netball in the many franchise teams she's played with, but also with the Diamonds.
And when do we expect this doco? I mean, I don't want to put you under the pump to make you work harder, and probably COVID has thrown all sorts of challenges your way, but when are you expecting to release it?
Yeah, look, we're working with a distributor at the moment about the details, so we're hoping to release this by the end of the year. We're going to post-production soon, and then we'll look for cinematic release or release to a broadcast channel by early next year, I think.
I know you're also putting a call out there, just seeking some fundraising or sponsorship just to keep the funds going towards the production side of things. And where can people find out more information? Where can people follow along and see how it's all going and contribute if they can?
We have a couple of social media channels on Facebook and Instagram, so at Rising to the Occasion _doco as a Instagram tag. But we have a website, risingtotheoccasion.com.au, where you can look at all the videos that we've released, the teaser videos and some information. And we also have a donation link there on that page that people can contribute to. And we've intentionally stayed fairly, pretty much completely independent with this documentary, just to make sure that we can tell the stories completely as they are, truthfully, without any sort of forces pulling on that, essentially. And so we've really gone it alone, and producing a documentary costs money. So we're just looking to find some sponsorship or individual donations just to continue to help us along the way of getting this released.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we hope that everybody can contribute where they can, but also make sure you follow along, and we're really excited to see it at the end of the year. Thanks so much for joining us on Centre Court today, Nathan.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Nathan. And a massive thank you to you, Braz. Love having you back in the studio. It's been a full-on episode of Centre Court, but there's been so much to talk about. And I hope all the teams enjoy being in Melbourne and, well, Adelaide Thunderbirds, not yet, but potentially at some stage soon.
And if you don't have a puffer, go out and buy one. You will need it this weekend.
I was like, a puffer, like Ventolin? Or...
You might need that too, but definitely a puffer jacket. It is rumoured that it's going to be freezing.
It's going to be freezing. But anyway, Lisa Netball is back in Melbourne. Thanks for watching Centre Court, and thanks to TAC. Make safety features a priority in your next car. Visit howsafeisyourcar.com.au. We'll see you next week.